we're going to talk about lead conversion. I got Kurt Hose on here. He and his wife have a big team in Ohio. I've got a team. We spend a lot of times talking about lead generation in this market. Houses are selling very quickly. There's not a lot of inventory. And there's a couple of really important things to accomplish when either you or one of your team agents is handling an inquiry, any inquiry really. Usually if it's going to be a bottom of the funnel lead where they're willing to talk to an agent, then there's some things that have to be accomplished on that phone call so that you actually have success. According to the National Association of Realtors, average buyer still works with about 74% of the time. They work with the first agent that they meet. And you're going to find that the most important thing on a lead inquiry call is to get an appointment, either an appointment to meet with you to talk about the process or an appointment to see a house, some sort of a physical face-to-face meeting, or potentially a Zoom if that's all you've got an option to do. But today we're going to take 15 minutes and we're going to just go over the steps. We've got two acronyms for you. One is ALM, A-L-M. The other one is LPMAMA, L-P-M-A-M-A. So we're going to get straight into it. Kurt, thanks for taking the time, man. Give us a little bit. I mean, you guys are focusing on Zillow Flex leads right now, correct?
Yeah, among other things, but we built essentially the entire business on, we didn't really have much of a sphere, me and Amy both. I'm obviously more on the back end. I'm more of like an architect than I am actually. I'm like architect and deal doctor for the team. Like when things go wrong, I'm a creative
business manager.
Yeah, essentially that's my role there. So when we do these, like the biggest thing, I always think that acronym means a lot. And you really have to think back to how we got here. Internet leads are a newer thing to a lot of people, but I mean, we built our entire business off of it. I mean, we did, we're doing 45 million or so a year, which is a pretty good amount of business with no sphere, none of that. We didn't start that way because we didn't have it. And that's where ALM becomes really important because the entire buy cycle is kind of flipped backwards to where buyers enter the back door now, if that makes any sense. It used to be they would call the agent because they needed an agent to show them the book of houses in the MLS. Well, now they call on the house because they can look at them on the internet. So they come in the back door, which is why ALM or LPMAMA or having some sort of a process for that really matters. That's where that process really matters because at the end of the day, the business is still belly to belly. It's still face to face. You're never going to sell anybody. Well, I can't say never because we've had this happen before where Amy had years ago, she had a phone call where a guy bought a $500,000 piece of land and we never met him in person. That's a unicorn though. We've sold.
Those are the unicorn transactions that we all decide. But let's start off with
statistically speaking, you got to meet them, which is where ALM comes in.
What does it stand for?
So appointment, location, motivation is the acronym.
Got it.
And the reason A is first is it's most important. And then location and motivation is more about building rapport. But if you're going to get one thing right on the first call, it's always consistently ask for the appointment at the very front of the call. Doesn't matter what the house, what anything. We answer every single call we get, like on a direct connection call or anything like that. Or if we get somebody on the phone, every call is always, hey, I see you're interested in this house. When would you like to see it? Or, oh, I see that you want to see this house at 2 p.m. tomorrow. What are a couple other times? That should be like the very first thing we say after a good introduction. I'm Kurt Hose with the Amy Hose team at EXP. I see you're interested in this. It should roll right off the tongue. That should be such a hammered out script. And I don't believe in scripts generally on a lot of stuff. I think you have to have some baseline on it, but there's times to go off script. You have to be able to think on your feet. But if you don't ask for the appointment early in the call, you're probably not going to get it. Right. And that's the only way you're ever selling anything to anybody is to meet them. And I don't really think of it as selling people. At the end of the day, they're buying what they want, but you want to be the person that's in the middle of that. And the only way to do that is to ask. If you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Correct. So and the whole idea about questions is to make them it's not about interrogating the borrower. It's about identifying their pain, right? Because we can't provide a solution without knowing what the pain is. So we have to find out their motivation, what they're looking for, why they're wanting to look, right? That's where these acronyms come in because they're going to help give you some framework around the conversation so that you don't end up boring the buyer or annoying them or feeling like they're just getting asked a bunch of random questions. At the end of the day, on a Zillow lead or a Realtor.com lead, the only difference between them and a Google lead or any other lead that you're talking about is that these are typically going to be bottom of the funnel leads, meaning that they've gone through the process on their own. I always use the analogy of the banana. A top of the funnel lead is going to be like a Google lead, a Facebook lead, where they're just sort of checking things out. They don't really want to talk to anybody. They're looking for a list of properties, right? So those require an entirely different type of conversation. You're not going to get an appointment with those people. It's about building a bond, about building trust, about the know-like trust, about providing value, and then attaching yourself to them through that process of the banana going from green to yellow. Zillow and Realtor.com leads, the only difference is they've gone through that on their own. Now they're actually willing to click the contact agent button on a listing, and they know that they're going to get a real estate agent because they're actually motivated to usually ask a question or to see a house. Is that right? That's accurate, right,
Yeah.
Kurt?
And I would say, even like the Google pay-per-click leads, there's intent there, but they're usually farther up the funnel. Once they've gone through Google, a really good exercise, and this screws up someone's conversion rate somewhere and costs them money, but a really good way to do it is go look in a market, not your own beach market, go on Zillow, log in, and watch how that process works. The system works you through the funnel by sending you a couple automated text messages. It looks like it's a person, but it's AI. They work it to the bottom of the funnel. And then by the time you're on the phone with them with like a Zillow or Realtor.com, those direct connections, they have not just shown intent by being on a real estate website in the first place, because that means they have intent, the fact that they're there. They didn't get there by accident, usually, the majority. Not only do they have intent, but now they're ripe, if that makes any sense.
Right.
So they've worked all the way down to where they've answered usually a person or automated text. And they've said, yes, I want to go see this with a realtor. Or, yes, I would like to talk to somebody about this house. So the fact that you're on the phone with them at that point, that is someone that has already told somebody else, yes, I'm more than willing to talk to a realtor. I'm interested. That is what I would call high intent. The people at the top of the funnel there's intent, but it's nowhere near where they're down at the bottom. Once you get them on a connection call, they have pretty high intent. They're at least considering it, willing enough to where they're willing to go through that dreaded step of meeting you in person. So the next logical thing is to ask them, because they've already told someone else to do it.
So if we're sticking with the shorter acronym ALM, you're going to talk to them about the house that they called about. You're going to ask them what caught their eye about it. And then you're going to quickly try to schedule an appointment to see it. And you're going to say, you wanted to see it tomorrow at 2. Can you give me, let's get a couple of backup times that work so that I can start working on that for you. Is that okay? Right? So then they're going to at least be getting you're going to lower their anxiety because they wanted one thing. It was an appointment to see the house, correct? Yeah. So you're going to get that out of the way. The next thing we need to talk about is location. And when we say location, we're just trying to figure out like what brought them here, what other areas are they looking for, and just kind of ask some questions around their budget, around, what they're looking for, what they're excited about seeing in a house. Have they looked at other houses with other agents? Don't ever ask, and I actually got this from Kurt, don't ever ask, are you working with an agent? It's too easy to say no. It's like when you go into a clothing store, you might have to buy a suit today. You got a wedding in 4 hours. But if someone says, can I help you? You're going to say no, just looking, because we're trained to do that because, we want to just push sales away, right? But if you say to them, by the way, have you been looking at houses with any agents recently? That's a question that they can answer. That doesn't sound like, are you working with an agent or are you trying to get,
it's less intimidating.
Am I trying to get you to work with me? Right.
And honestly, on that first phone call, a lot of times we won't ask on the first phone call. We'll ask on the follow-up call. We'll schedule a showing, then we'll call them back and ask, because there's still that little bit of standoffishness until you talk to them the second time. And their internet leads. People will lie to you to protect their time. And that's just a fact. They will say, we've had it more than once where I've done it too, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm already working with somebody because I just know that that's going to get me left alone. So you really want to focus that first call on getting an appointment, but then always go back. You want to be respectful of other people. Like we try very hard. It's very important to us to not step on people's toes. And we don't want to take somebody's client. Obviously if somebody's not serving their client, different story.
That's different.
But we always want to be very respectful of that because, you want to be professional at the end of the day.
Well,
but it's actually on the first phone call, you want to build brief rapport, get an appointment set. Location and motivation are important, but if you don't get one of those, it's less important than just set a meeting because that should be your first thing. And if you say, hey, when do you want to see it? And they're standoffish, you don't want to push, read the room, but you always want to ask up front because if you don't ask, the answer is always no. You will never show anybody a house unless you ask them if they want to go see it. We've had very rarely, I'd say like 10% of ours will say, oh yeah, I want to see it tomorrow. Can we see it? Most of them will be kind of standoffish, even though they just told someone they would talk to us about it. So that's
just human nature, and we've all been that way.
that psychology part of it's very important. You want to understand the buyer, respect them, respect their agent if they have one. And unlocking that information can be difficult. And it's a learning thing for sure.
The last part of the ALM is motivation. So there's another acronym, DNA. You want to find out their motivation and their desire, their need, their ability, right? So you can ask those questions at the end, but just around, here's a question I love to ask. Can I ask you a silly real estate question? And they say, yeah. If you could pick a date in the future where you would be in your house and have this whole process over with in a perfect world, when would that be? Because then you're going to find out if they say, well, we'd like to be in by the end of the summer, right?
But we have these barriers.
Right. And you can ask them what's important about that date. So you can determine someone like where they're at in the situation pretty quickly by just asking them that. If you could pick a date in the future in a perfect world that you could have this whole process over with and you'd be in your new home, when would that be? It's a great question. So that's really ALM.
The secondary part of that question too is if they say, well, we want to move by fall, but we've got this problem, you might have solutions to those problems. So you're basically bringing up the barriers that you want to fix. So if you've got the answers, like, oh, I've got a lender that can do this, or, oh, well, you just need to sell. Well, we can get yours on the market. You got to go quicker than you think. You're basically unlocking what that person really wants and what it's going to take to get them there. And that's the best way to help them.
Might not always happen in one conversation. But so LPMAMA, what that is, basically, it's going to be a more broken down version of the ALM. So you've got location at the beginning. Ask them what caught their eye about that house. What is it about that house that they like, so that you can just start opening up some dialogue around there. The second one, price. Ask them questions about their budget, and you want to make it about them. You don't want to be about you giving them interrogating questions, because they're going to shut down or hang up on you. So what you want to do is ask them, like, just so that I can be sure, if I find other homes in this price range, say, if they say that this house is $279,900 or $479,900, whatever it is, say, is that in the budget that you've been looking? Yes, no, okay, it's a little high, whatever. So if I find anything in the $250 to $280 range, is that something that you would be open to? And then say, because I don't want to show you homes that are outside of your comfort zone, right? You want to always have the conversation go back to helping them. So that's price. Motivation. First, you want to find out their desire, but then you want to establish a need. Is it a discretionary move, or do they have to move? Are they moving here from out of state? Do they have a baby on the way? Do they have a lease coming up, right? So these are things that are going to determine their need and their desire. Then agent, you want to find out if they've been working with an agent. And again, the easiest way to ask that question, have you been looking at homes with any agents recently, right? Just ask them that. Finally, mortgage, find out if they're getting a mortgage, are they paying cash? Don't get into a whole bunch of stuff around giving you a pre-approval letter or all of that. Try not to use the phrase pre-approval, because a lot of real estate agents say, are you pre-approved? That's become a kind of a proprietary phase to our business. And a lot of buyers, it makes them sort of tense up because they hear it all the time. So you just want to touch on the fact, are they paying cash? Are they getting a mortgage? Have they talked to a lender recently?
On the qualifying on that stuff, we've seen pretty good results. We've completely quit trying to qualify people on the first call, unless it just seems like they really need a lot of guidance. But most internet buyers we found are pretty sophisticated people. I can tell you, I'm a perfect example of this. When we've bought every car we've ever bought, every house we've ever bought, we have never been pre-approved beforehand. We've never even, the last 5 cars we've bought, we didn't even go to the dealership and test drive them. We bought them online, and I bought them from whoever would just sell them to me at the price that was agreeable. And I'm going to come in and pick it up. Literally, we bought Amy's Yukon that way. The first girl wanted us to come in and test drive it. I said, look, we're too busy. Yeah. I know what I want. I'm like, it's a pricey car. It's not like, I know what I want. I can give you a deposit over the phone. We built the car over the phone. It was a painless process for me. Right. She listened to us and just let us solve the problem. And I will say, when we bought our houses, we knew what we're capable of being financed for. Not every buyer is going to be like that, but we usually give them one free meeting without a pre-approval. But then if we're going to show them 20 houses, we're going to change things.
Right. There's an entire caveat to this. If you're real estate agents are in a very vulnerable spot. We're meeting people we don't know.
That is a problem. Yeah.
Right. So you need to make sure that all of your questions, you need to make sure that you're protecting yourself before you show up to a home with someone you don't know, And if red flags start showing up in your world, forget about these acronyms and don't go, right?
Yeah.
And always let someone else know. Always let someone else know where you're going to be and when, right? So that's a whole other conversation on protecting yourself and protecting your safety.
Oh, yeah. They're internet leads, like internet dating.
Right. Correct. And women, honestly, I mean, I've known some male realtors that have been attacked or even murdered. It's horrific, but it's more of a problem with females. So you just need to protect yourself. That's not what we're talking about here. But anyway, the last letter is A, appointment. Like on the ALM, you ask for the appointment at the beginning. LPMAMA, which is you can go online and type in LPMAMA. It's a very common acronym for handling buyer inquiries or working with buyers in general. Like if you meet with a buyer at your office, you can go through LPMAMA as well, just as part of a checklist to keep the meeting on structure. But it's an excellent way for you to have a phone call and have it have some flow so you don't get to the end of the call and feel really awkward and embarrassed that you kind of screwed it up, right? So if you follow either ALM or LPMAMA, you're at least going to have a professional structure to your meeting. So with that, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that's really it. I mean, at the end of the day, though, always think about the basics. Your odds, like Will said at the beginning of the call, your statistical probability of a sale goes up drastically if you meet them in person. So that's
meet them at the house. You got about a 70 to 80% chance if they're a bona fide buyer. Like if you meet them there and you find out that they're just tire kickers, but that's one thing. But if they're a bona fide buyer and you meet them and you do your job, you show up with data and numbers and you're smart and you're kind and you talk about them and you ask them questions and you don't do a bunch of telling, right? They say there's another one, listen to list, walk and talk, or talk and walk, right? So ask a lot of questions about them and you should have success. But if you meet someone at a property or meet them at your office, after that meeting, you've got almost an 80% chance or higher that you're actually going to end up selling them a house. So on that note, we're going to, hopefully you guys found
I do have one little tidbit that Amy's always used that actually, for it. So, and this is probably where we all started when we started this and we didn't know anything. We had no training or anything like that. Amy has a phrase she's used for years and it was very successful because of the way these leads are, because you're meeting them. You're not a person until you meet them in person. You're a voice over the phone.
Correct.
And she always uses the phrase talk with a smile. So she intentionally talks with a smile when she takes the calls because it changes the way you sound. Yeah, it's like manifesting happiness. And people don't want to work with someone that sounds like Eeyore. It's just not the way it is. You want to sound excited about their journey, excited to help them, but still helpful and not like pushy and, like sweaty excited. You want to be like just happy to be there. Hey, I'm happy to help you. Think about the waitresses you like at the restaurant. Same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, waitresses are great. The ones that come up and actually want to help you, they generally get the bigger tips. In
you can stand at the check-in table and I can tell you who's going to take home the most tips tonight by watching. I can do it at the bar and I guarantee it's right every time.
Real estate agents are no better.
Yeah,
except
no different.
You got 5, 6, 10 grand on the line. So don't drop the ball with these leads. All right, man. Thanks for coming on today. Hope this was helpful, guys.
Hey, anytime. See you guys.
All right. See you.